What's going on, guys? We're back at it again with another tutorial. This one is going to be a short one. A few weeks ago, we talked about playing the 2-5-1 progression and how to play the 2-5-1 progression. We went over a few chords and also the root notes that you're supposed to play. But I get a lot of questions saying, how do you solo over that, or how do you improvise using that 2-5-1 progression or over any progression? So in this lesson, I'm going to talk about a few solo tips that you can use to solo over this progression coming up. All right, guys, like I mentioned before, a few weeks ago, we went over the 2-5-1 progression, what those chords are and what those chords entail, and the bass notes and the root notes as well. So we're going to be expanding on that right now. If you haven't seen that lesson, I strongly suggest that you go take a look at it and then come back here and then you'll be caught up to date. Anyway, let's get into it. All right, guys, first and foremost, if I sound a little funny, my voice sounds a little funny, I'm battling this little cold thing. I don't know what it is. But anyway, I need to make sure you guys are taken care of, so I'm going to truck through it. In the lesson previous to this, I talked about the 2-5-1 progression, right? So we did the 2-5-1 progression in the key of C. So the 2 of C would be D, the 5 would be G, and then the 1 would be C, all right? Being in the key of C major. So we also did the chords to that. We did the chords of D minor 7, a G7, dominant 7, and then a C major 7. We also talked about another place, another almost inversion to how to play those chords or how to play that progression. We can play that here on the 10th fret, D minor 7, G dominant 7, C major 7. Sorry, so that's the 2, that's the 5, the 1. All right, just a little recap. I have how I'm playing these chords. Second finger plays the root note, the D. Right. Third finger plays that minor 7. Then my fourth finger underneath, if you can see that, my fourth finger underneath plays the minor third, or the minor 10, if you will. All right, because we're just moving the third up an octave. Just to make the chord sound a little bit prettier, so it's not so, the frequencies are not so low, right? So that was for the 2 chord. The 5 chord, I played the G, the bass note, with my second finger. First finger plays that third, the major third, and then the minor 7 to that G, technically, well, the dominant 7, to that G, I'm playing with my third finger, all right? So the G, second finger, the B, first finger, sorry, wrong finger, and then the F with my third finger. All right, so next chord, the C major 7. So I'm usually try to play, that's a little trick that I have. I usually try to play my bass notes with my second finger, just so if I have to play another note here or on the A string or something like that, my first finger is freed up to do that. Because if I switched, can't really do anything else. When my fourth finger is kind of, is open, but usually I like to, sorry, wrong chord. So if I wanted to switch that up, move that down a whole step, move that 7 down to the 6, to the major 6, I can. But anyway, that's just a small little tip that I do. I usually try to play my chords with the bass note with the second finger. All right, but anyway, oh, I didn't go over that that chord. So we have the C, the B with the third finger, fourth finger plays the E. And if you notice with these chords, I'm leaving out the 5th note of whatever scale degree that is, whatever mode that I'm playing. I'm leaving out the 5th note just for, beginners purposes, so we can have a little bit easier of a time to play these chords. Because if I played the 5th, I mean, it's doable. If I played the 5th note along with that C major 7, it's just a little tough. You might find it weird to do this position right now. So right now we're just leaving out the 5th. But anyway, so that was the chord progression. We're going to move on to the soloing tip. So now that we have that down pat, what I like to do is I like to record myself either playing that progression or use a looper or anything like that. In this case, I have a looper here. I'll just play the 2-5-1 progression, the chords, so you can really hear how it sounds like and be able to play along with yourself. Right? Instead of having, like, say, if you're practicing by yourself and you don't have anybody to practice with, excuse me, or any guitar player or piano player to play the chords along with you, you can play the chords yourself and play along to it. I find it, definitely pretty helpful. So here we go with the chords. So we got this D minor 7, G7, and C major 7. So here we go. this is going to be playing. Hopefully you guys can hear me over on top of the bass part that's playing. But anyway, I'm going to talk through this a little bit. So when you're approaching this soloing type of technique, right, you want to think about what scale degrees you have. So for the second mode, right, for the 2-5-1, this is what I'm going based on. So the 2-5-1, let me stop this for a second, just in case you guys can't hear me. I'll put it back on once we start. So for the 2, all right, you're using the second mode, right, from being in the C major scale. That was our Ionian scale. So, and if you haven't seen the modes lesson or course, huge course on the modes, go check that out. That way you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. So using the second mode, because we're on the 2 of that chord progression, which will be the Dorian mode. So that's the mode that we're using. All right, so now we have to think about, all right, now our solo, our improvise, this is where it kind of comes together, right? I'll get a lot of questions about how do you put the modes, how do you use the modes inside of your playing or anything like that, because they sound weird by themselves. This is exactly how, so keep watching if that's your question. So for the 2 chord, we have that to work with. We have the Dorian scale. We can play the whole entire scale. We can split it up if we wanted to. We can play an arpeggio. We can play the triad, right? But there's different inversions and there's different ways and different variations that you can play that scale or that mode. So for the 2 chord, and then to the 5, what was the 5 mode? What was the 5th mode that we have to use? So if we're in the key of C and we're playing the G, we're on the 5th note, we got to use the 5th mode, which is mixolydian. All right, 5th mode mixolydian. So we have 2nd mode Dorian, 5th mode mixolydian. So this is the modes that we're going to be using across that chord progression. So we have 2 Dorian, 5 mixolydian, and then to the 1, which is, we all know, which is our major scale, right? But there's some tips that you can use to, not sound like you're just playing the scale over it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in a case like that, you actually have less time to think about what you're going to do in between that time. All right, so you only have 2 notes for the first 2 chords. So what I would do, an exercise that I like to do on a chord progression like that, is use or play the triads. Play the triad to each chord progression. All right, so what I mean is take the Dorian scale, play the triad to that, which will be D, F, A. Then the next to the 5, take the triad to that. So we have G, B, D. And then we'll take the triad for the next one, which is the 1. So we have C, E, G. That simple. I'll show you how to play over that. Just using the triad, D, G, C. So what I'm doing at the end there is I'm ending on the octave of C. So the triad first and then the octave. All right, so that's a basic way you can practice that, right? There's different positions you can actually do it in too, such as what I did there is I played the same position. I didn't move my hand at all. I played that D triad, the D minor triad. 4th finger, 2nd finger, 1st finger on the 2nd fret. Right? And then the G, B, and the D with the 2nd finger, 1st finger, and 4th finger. And then I'm right in line, right underneath with the 1st, the Ionian scale, which is the major scale triad, right? So next we're going to add a little bit of melody in there, all right? That sometimes the triads kind of sound a little bit boring after a while. So we're going to spice it up just a little bit to figure out what kind of variations we can do using this. So I'll show you guys the melody first. So the little melody that I like to use to solo over the 2-5-1 progression is using a D minor arpeggio, right? Along with just kind of circling around the other modes or the other chord progressions. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'll play it first and then I'll play it with the looper so you can hear what it sounds like against those chord progressions. So I'll play the D minor triad, right, starting with the fourth finger. So we have D, F, A, C. Now I'm going to go down to the seventh note of the major scale. All right, so by that time, we're on the second chord. We're on the 5 chord. So remember, we had two beats for each chord progression for the first two. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in order to fit inside of those measures will be. So that's going to be the melody to start off with. So now you're on the 5th chord. So now we ended on the third note of the G major, not G major scale, but the mixolydian, G mixolydian. So we end right there, which is a nice place not to end. We're not completely done, but it's a nice place to land right there for that chord progression. So the rest of it is. So all we're doing is walking down the major scale until the third note of the major scale. So we have, all right, 7th note, 6th note, 5th note, 4th note, and then end on the 3rd of C major. So you can never go wrong on landing on the 3rd of whatever chord you're playing. The 3rd really has a, it's not an overpowering sound, but it's a very dominant sound. That's how we kind of differentiate between a major chord or a minor chord, using the 3rd a lot. So if you're landing on a major 3rd, if it's a major chord, it really sounds nice and it really complements whatever chord you're playing. Or also the minor 3rd if you're playing a minor chord. But anyway, so the whole thing, we have D minor, walk down scale to the E. So I'll call out the notes. We got D, F, A, C, B, A, G, F, E. It's a very nice way to solo over that. So we have D minor, G, dominant, C major. We end on the 3rd, right? Makes sense? So I'll play it along with it. Here we go.